So what I'm going to talk about in this video is a little bit about the Second Amendment and how it was created and what's going on today. So stay tuned. So the question is, what is the Second Amendment? The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution is part of the Bill of Rights, which has been ratified in 1791. And it does state that the right for the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This Second Amendment guarantees the right of individuals to bear arms and form a militia for the purpose of maintaining a free state. And what does that mean? So back before the Revolutionary War, the British, due to other circumstances, removed our weapons from us and actually started moving troops into our homes, which goes into another amendment. However, that was it was already a boiling point at that time. Tempers were flared, everything was happening, and that was one of the things that we struggled in the beginning of the war, was to arm our citizens to fight the tyrannical government that was the King of England and the English government of Great Britain. So that's why they want to make our founding fathers wanted to make sure that when creating this country, that we were able to defend ourselves in case our own government, they already predicted that this could possibly happen, that our own government may try to do some silly things. So that's why. So it's been definitely been a lot of controversy and debate, and with some airing stricter gun controls throughout recent history. The Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution is one of the most hotly debated amendments in American history. We all agree. It does guarantee the rights of individuals to bear arms, and subject to many controversy and interpretation over the years. And some of that interpretation, a lot of the opposition of the Second Amendment states that, when it was created back in the day, they had muskets. They also had cannons too, so can we have cannons, right? So that's one of their debates for history. Well, then you should have muskets, right? Because that's when it was created. Well, then, the First Amendment, which is freedom of speech, was basically of mouth and newspaper, right? So then should we have freedom of speech, just that, and everyone just get hung for what they said on the internet, right? No, that they're okay with, pushing things of past dates on one thing that they dislike, but they're okay with the things that they do like. Is a little bit of hypocrisy, and we all have that, right? So in 1787, the United States Constitution was actually drafted in Philadelphia. The Constitution was designed to create a stronger federal government and to replace the Articles of the Confederation, which were seen as weak and ineffective. The Second Amendment was one of 10 amendments, there's more now, added to the Constitution in 1791, collectively known as the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights was added to the Constitution to protect the individual liberties and limit the power of the federal government. The Second Amendment was primarily in response to concerns about the power of the federal government and the need for a well-regulated militia to protect the new nation. And a lot of people say that there is another thing to talk about a regulated militia. That's going to be a long one. Actually, I'll probably even go deeper into that in a different video. But a lot of people say that the militia within your state is actually your National Guard. And a lot of people disagree with that, because the National Guard is once again funded by the government. And they're saying the pro militia are saying that we the people need to regulate our militia, not the government. So that's what you'll hear from time to time. So at the time of the amendment's drafting and ratification, the firearms were essential tool of everyday life, used for hunting, self-defense, and military purposes. The Second Amendment was intended to protect the rights of the individual to own and use firearms for these purposes, as well as to form a militia to defend their country in a time of crisis. And that time of crisis, of course, was the Revolutionary War. And today's time of crisis is possible Revolutionary War, possible Civil War, possible break into house. Like there's a lot of things that we can defend that. And a lot of the pro-Second Amendment people, as well as me, believe that we should have the tools to defend ourselves. There was one question. I was actually watching a video today. There was one question posed or stated like, all right, there's a red button and a blue button. The red button is it will remove 99% of the firearms in the world. And then the blue button will arm 99% of the population. And the person that in this video said they would arm 99% of the population. I completely that's both buttons are horrible. However, I would probably agree with the blue button. I'd hit the blue button to arm 99% of the population. But then again, if you're thinking about you're arming criminals, and I think that's bad. The red button, you're disarming 99% of the population. That means 1% of the population has the firearms. And hopefully that 1% isn't criminals, or they don't turn into criminals. Anyway, so and I let's continue, right? The Second Amendment, like I mentioned before, is a very controversial, and debated one of the amendments in American history, and some of the arguments are actually stated. So, like the pro Second Amendment people and one in favor is protecting individual liberty, and it's one of the most common arguments in the favor of the Second Amendment, and is to protect the individual liberty and the right of individuals to own firearms in self-defense and other purposes. So the supporters of that Second Amendment argue that the government should not be able to restrict or regulate this right. And there's actually something going on right now with ATF, and it's that this trigger, I can't even think of the name of them right now, that where they said that it can turn it into a machine gun. I've seen people fire it, and it doesn't turn it into a machine gun, because a machine gun means it's an automatic weapon, not a semi-automatic weapon. And semi-automatic, I'm going to restate it for people I'm pretty sure you know, but people that come across my channel may not know. Who knows, right? So semi-automatic means I pull the trigger, gun goes bang, I release, I press the trigger, gun goes bang. That's it. That's just the mechanic. Full auto means I pull the trigger, I hold it down, right? It goes bang, 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 bang. I let go, and it doesn't go bang anymore. So they're saying this trigger makes it go bang, 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 bang. But I've seen plenty of videos where it just goes bang. And the mechanics of it, like I said, I'm not 100% sure on it, but the mechanics of it forces your finger forward so you can bang quicker. It gives you the ability to pull the trigger quicker, but it's not a machine gun. And they're trying to use this rhetoric, this false definition to push this rhetoric of that it's a very dangerous thing. And then there's another thing I just recently heard about. It's a solvent tank. It's a solvent catch. And what you do is you put it at the end of your wherever. Like I said, I just found this out. And it's supposed to catch the solvent and all these other things dripping out of your weapon while you're cleaning it, right? So people have turned that into a suppressor. So there is this video. Well, it was blurry, but you see stuff moving behind the blur, and there's a lot of audio. And it was an ATF agents knocking on the door saying, "Hey, we noticed that you bought this, and we're here to collect it. If you don't, you'll go to federal prison." And they're like, "Well, we know what you use it for." But what can you do? You can't prove that this individual's using it for that. You're just knocking on doors saying, "Give it to me," when it's a legal piece of equipment. Just because other people have used it incorrectly doesn't mean he is. Like vehicles. I mean, vehicles, people use them incorrectly all the time, and thousands of people die. But they're not saying, well, I think you're using it illegally, so I'm going to take away your car. And keeping this mindset, driving is a privilege in the United States. Owning a weapon is a right, an inalienable right to own a weapon. So, there we go. So another thing about the Second Amendment that a lot of people are in favor of the Second Amendment is actually self-defense. So there's a common argument in favor of the Second Amendment that allows individuals to protect themselves and their families from harm. The supporters of the Second Amendment often argue this. I do too. That owning a firearm is an effective way to deter crime and protect against home invasions. There's an argument where they say if we get rid of all guns, it'd be a safer place. No. I'm 6'2", 270 pounds. I need to lose some weight, but I'm 270 pounds. My fiance is 5'2" pounds, and I can physically, let's say I don't know her and I'm just a bad guy, right? I can physically overcome her and do whatever I want to her, right? I don't even need a gun. I mean, well, let's say guns are out of the question. I don't need a knife, bat. I don't need anything. Just these. Now, she's dead, raped, completely obliterated, physically, whatever it may be, right? Now, if she had a gun, her being smaller than me, she would have been able to defend herself. And that's a big argument. Like, we got to think of everyone, right? We can't say, well, if we take that away, everyone, even playing ground, well, there's knives, there's there's bows and arrows, crossbows. Everyone's going to be crossbowing each other to death, whatever it may be, right? So, anyways, that's a very valid argument that it is a necessity for home defense or for self-defense. So other people are arguing hunting and recreational activities. So many supporters of the Second Amendment also argue that owning firearms is necessary for hunting and other recreational activities like going to the range, right? They believe that restricting access to firearms would limit the ability for individuals to participate in these activities. So hunting, some places, even within the United States, is a necessity for people to survive, especially like in Alaska, right? They're many, many miles away from a general outpost, a store that they can buy food, so they live off the land. That's necessary. There's also like the restriction to recreational activities, just simply going to the range, or even competition shooting. That's definitely a recreational activity. And to limit or even get rid of these firearms is getting rid of people's sometimes livelihood. Like you go to these competitions, you do earn money. You're also taking away from people's fun and also people's stressors. A lot of people like to go to the range to relieve stress. And I'm one of those. I like going to the range and, shoot off 100 rounds accurately as possible. I'm still training. You always go to the range to train, and it feels good. I'd never hurt anyone on purpose, but I would hurt someone on purpose if they're hurting an innocent person. But I never initiate it. So, anyways, there's that. Then the biggest thing, and it goes back to militias, to prevent tyranny. Some of the supporters argue that it's necessary to prevent tyranny. They believe that an armed population can serve as a check on the government power and prevent the government from being too powerful. And you can kind of see that now. That the government is so insistent on taking away our weapons. They've tried to... and they successfully manipulated groups of people to push their own agenda. And you've seen that during the riots and stuff like that. And it's unfortunate. You've seen that when they've pushed a lot of funds towards Antifa and pushed funds towards BLM. The group, not the meaning behind it. The meaning behind it, Black Lives Matter, is good. The group itself is horrendous. No black person should ever be associated with the actual group. Another story if it ever comes across, right? However, we have these weapons to prevent the government from being too powerful. They're afraid of us. I mean, we outnumber them. Horrendously outnumber them. And the people, even 10% of the population of armed public severely outnumbers them, and they're afraid. So they're doing everything possible to limit the number. They think that if they can limit us as much as possible, not us just the pro-amendment, but our civilization as possible, we the people, us, that they can just roll through. And they don't realize that they can't use the military against us. Because there's a lot of people in the military, if they are true to what they swore in, because they rose their right hand and said that they will protect the Constitution. And if they go against the American people and destroy the Constitution, they're not protecting it. So there's speculation that they would completely leave the military and then join to fight against the government. So all this is definitely something to definitely dive deeper into, but definitely not right now. So there are actually some opponents' side of view of the public safety. And the Second Amendment, the opponents of the Second Amendment argue that it is necessary to regulate firearms in order to protect public safety. They believe that restricting access to firearms will reduce the number of gun-related deaths. Yes and no. One of their biggest argument is we need to have background check. And the misconception is they mean to say we should have a universal background check. We already have a background check. And yes, I agree, it is flawed. There's loopholes, and I think they need to fix that before they add anything else. You don't put... You can't add things if something's broken right now. You got to fix it, and then you can add on it. Like there's one loophole where... in Texas, when I was living there, I can buy a gun, right? Whatever. And I can go to someone else as long as I know that they're not going to do it to commit a crime. As long as they're not a felon or anything that I know that they're going to do it illegally. Or if they also have to be U.S. citizens as well. I can just sell it to them or even give it to them. And I think that there's a little bit of flaw in that. Yeah. So we'll carry on with these. So the biggest thing that's happening now, and it's the biggest argument, the people that are opposing the Second Amendment are mass shootings. And definitely in the wake of these mass shootings, the opponents of the Second Amendment argue that it's necessary to restrict access to firearms in order to prevent these tragedies from occurring. And I agree these are traumatic and they're wrong. They believe that the proliferation of firearms in the United States has contributed to the rise of mass shootings. No, I believe there's many things that contribute to these mass shootings. And this is something I'm going to be going into more, as another argument of the opponents of Second Amendment is mental health. Mental health is on the rise. And that, I can go deeper into that. I blame what I'm looking at as a big proponent to the decline of mental health. So there's that. Also, I think another rise in mass shootings is the glorification, almost in a very sick way, the glorification of mass shootings. And the media definitely doesn't help with that. And media only pushes the ones that they deem necessary to push an agenda. Like that one mass shooting in that school. I can't remember the school. There's a lot of videos, body cam of the cop going, one cop, multiple cops going in, and they actually put down the suspect, and that suspect was a trans man transitioning into a woman. which that the media never pushed that. They just said, horrible thing, and that they that was it. That was it. Nothing, and because it goes against their agenda, right? That we need to protect these people, whatnot, right? So there's that. And then the opponents of the Second Amendment, like I mentioned before, is the necessity to address mental health in order to prevent gun violence. They do believe that individuals with the history of mental illness should not be allowed to own fire guns. I think most of the population agrees. Just like felons should own firearms either. So yes, mental health is a serious issue, not just within within the horrendous parts of violence, but in general. And like I said, I do blame phones. I blame technology. Hands down, is a huge reason why there's mental health issues. But I will go into that later. So to kind of wrap this video up, it's been going on for a little over 20 minutes, but I'll make more videos covering the other amendments of the Bill of Rights. But I just wanted people to see where it came from and where it is today, and what the arguments are. And they're good arguments on both sides, but some sides or some arguments may be a little more extreme and not well thought out. So my thing is, I believe we should always have the Second Amendment, and it should be so severely restricted that the good law-abiding citizen is not allowed or incapable of obtaining one. I think every good law-abiding citizen of sound mind, I'm going to add that in, should be able to own a firearm. And not only that, should train with that firearm so they're familiar and they don't cause needless death or injury, which is another thing. And there's a statistic out there that the leading cause of death of firearms is suicide. Then once you go into murders, most of it's gang-related murders and criminal actions to the murders, like robbery and whatnot, or just straight out just mental illness of murdering someone, right? So there's plenty of that. But we at the Shield Wall Nation, like I said, we need to be stronger. We need to be able to educate ourselves, see what's right and wrong, and be able to do that. And one thing to make us stronger and defend ourselves, our homes, our family, our loved ones, our dog. I got my dog right here, and the cat was yelling at me earlier, and I fed her, so she's not yelling at me anymore. And we have to defend them. There's some states like Maryland, these are not living creatures. They're just property. So if someone's beating my dog, I really can't do anything about it except for assault the man. Then I go in for assault, right? Texas, I can shoot the guy right then and there. But anyways, we got to protect our loved ones and make us stronger, and know that a firearm should not be used in fear, but in defense, self-defense. So defend your home, defend yourself. Like I've said before, make yourself stronger physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever else you need to make yourself stronger, and become a better person. So with that being said, you Shield Wall Nation, Shield Wall,